everyone, my name is Jennifer Stay.
And I'm Steve Stay.
This is Coloring Bliss, and we're here today with Little Rose, and what's this sitting here on my desk? These are brand new markers. They're called Olo Markers, and they are supposed to be revolutionary. Something new, something that hasn't been done in over 30 years. They've redesigned the marker. And the reason these caught my attention is because of two main things. One, they're customizable. We're going to talk about that. And the ink system inside is new. We're going to talk about that too.
Yeah, I'm really curious about these, because we see a lot of these white label rebranding products out of China where, they basically just rebrand the packaging.
Yeah.
And they make it look like it's something new, but in the end, it's really just the same thing as, a dozen other companies. So I'm really curious to see, is that what this is? Is it just a gimmick, or did they really revolutionize something?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. I want to mention right up front that we are not sponsored. We bought this with our money. It was very pricey, and we're really excited about showing it to you. So let's start off with an unboxing. Now, just a minute, Jennifer. Before you get started with that unboxing, I have some coloring pages for everyone. This page right here is an oldie but a goodie. We've got a cute little gnome hanging out, some beautiful butterflies, a ladybug to color. This is free for a limited time, so follow the link in the video description and come and download this really fun summer gnome and color him up. Now we also have two new pieces of summer art for you to enjoy. These are for those of you who are paid members over at Coloring Bliss. Just $5 a month and you get access to hundreds of coloring pages, and now you get access to this one. Cute little fox, see these camping. Oh, it's just really adorable. Oh, makes me want to go camping. Look at those mountains. Okay, and then this is your second brand new one for those of you who are paid members. Look at these fun seashells. Oh, they're just begging for pastels and iridescence and metallic colors. This one looks like so much fun. Thank you to the Bliss artists who drew these two for us, and don't forget to follow the link in the video description to come and get your free gnome summer coloring page. Okay, it's unboxing time, and we did open this up just to peek in and make sure everything was shipped correctly, and but we didn't actually unpackage, so you'll see what I mean here in a minute. So the first thing that we found was a little thank you note from Olo. And then in this tissue paper, all nice and neatly wrapped, is our invoice, but I'm not going to show that to you because it has private things on it. Now we get to the good stuff that I barely looked at. I just peeked. So we did order before Olo was officially available to everyone. So I think some of this is free gifts. I'm not sure what comes when you normally order. That would be a good question. If you order it now, would you get this? Which first thing we got was this bound book here. It's got a swatch chart so that as your full set syndrome kicks in and you need to collect them all, you can keep track of what you do and don't have. And then there's this little letter here talking about how to replace the cartridges, how that works, how to replace nibs, that kind of thing, all right there. And then this notebook is full of really pretty white marker paper. It's super slick and nice and thick. So I'm kind of excited to try it out and see how it works with these markers. Next surprise we found was this. And I believe this is a marker storage system. Isn't that cool that they included that? So we'll break into this and assemble it here in a minute. But I thought that was really thoughtful. And again, I didn't anticipate getting that. So that's pretty cool. And then below is where we get into the things we didn't unbox because I wanted to do it with you. We have two boxes here. This one is labeled Olo Accessories. And then this is the actual markers right here, the Olo Markers. Ooh, I'm so excited. Okay, let's take a peek, shall we? So to help you understand, when I ordered these, it was before they were officially launched. So now when you go to their website, you get to have a different experience with a better website than what I saw, which was just a preliminary site. So I was a little confused when I ordered this. I wanted all brush nibs. I knew that. And with the Olo system, you get to choose between brush and chisel nibs. So I was excited. That was one of the things that really drew me to Olo, was the fact that I could have all brush nibs. Now, the other thing I knew is I wanted at least 32 colors, because that would give me a good variety of colors to really test these markers with. And we took some time, because I think there were 3 or 4 different 32 sets.
Seems like that.
And Steve and I looked at the colors really closely and decided set 2, that's what I ordered here, was the most balanced in colors, so I could do the things I wanted to do with them. Now, when I ordered the 32, I didn't, I had a lot of faith here, because I didn't know exactly what I was getting, and here I was dropping like $200, and I didn't know exactly what would come. Yeah. I thought if I ordered the brush and the chisel nibs, that I would end up with 16 marker colors in chisel and 16 marker colors in brush. But really what they've given me here is 32 marker colors with brush on both ends. And if you know anything about the Olo, which you probably don't at this point, each little section like this is technically the same amount of marker ink that's held inside of a Copic. So that's basically 2 Copic markers of the same color is what I ended up with. So I think that's pretty cool.
So it's like you got 64 then.
Yeah, 64, but they're all duplicating each other, which is great, because if I run out fast, I'll have another one ready to go. So that's the way the Olo system works. 1/2 is basically equal to what you would get here in the Copic marker when they're talking about milliliters of ink that they've put in. There's 2 milliliters here, 2 milliliters here, for a total of 4 milliliters. And a Copic has, they say, approximately 2 milliliters. So that's how the system works. Knowing now what I was shipped, I probably would have done half chisel, half brush, so I would have one of each to show you, but I really wanted the brush tip, so that's what we ended up getting, because I wanted to err on the side of having all my colors with a beautiful brush nib. Now, inside the accessory box, it came with a really cute sticker. We always like a sticker. It came with their big color wheel. We're going to talk about the color system here in a minute and what all the names and numbers mean, but there's a quick look at what colors they offer in the whole system. And then you can get little connector rings, and I don't think mine came with any connector rings, but what they did include are these here, which are extenders. I don't know the right name yet, but it's an extender that you can twist onto the end of these markers and make for one nice long tapered marker, which I really am digging the shape and feel of this. In general, these markers feel quite light, and having that end on there feels really nice.
Well, it's interesting that it makes it kind of the shape of a paintbrush.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. Okay, so that's what I got. I still need to wrap my head around how the system works. We're going to talk about what's inside here, what makes it special, and their color number system, how that works, because they have done something a little bit different, and I like it. So let me start by assembling this, and let's see what this cool thing is and how it works with my set of markers. Here they are, all in the stand. Look how nice that stand looks. And I discovered one mistake they made when they shipped these to me, which I'm kind of glad they made the mistake because it helps us with our discussion here. They gave me one chisel nib right there. And I could tell that it was a chisel nib because the body of this marker is gray versus black. So we have a chisel nib that we can analyze. So good mistake, but a mistake nonetheless. All right, next up, we need to swatch them and talk about the color system while swatching. To do my swatching today, I'm going to be working in Volume 2 Flower Bliss, which has been printed on our beautiful marker paper. Here at Coloring Bliss, we have all kinds of paper, and one of my favorites is the Bliss marker paper because it's so smooth, so dense, you can work so many layers. It's a pleasure to work on. But we also have color pencil paper, mixed media paper, black paper, tan paper, watercolor paper, all that you can have these types of books printed on. So I'm going to flip to the back of this book where I had Steve, when he ordered this for me from our Bliss print shop, he added some blank pages, and then at the very back we have the awesome swatch pages. So this is where I'm going to swatch them, and I'm also going to swatch a few Copics, a few of my favorite Blick Studio markers, and I think I'll grab some Ohuhus, which are some cheap Chinese markers, and we'll swatch a few of those as well, just to kind of get a feeling of the inks. Is there a difference between the inks, the nibs, all that good stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do some swatching. The Olo markers have a really cool numbering system so that we can keep track of what marker is in our hand. The first thing you're going to see on the cap is a big letter or maybe two letters, and this signifies where this color lands on the artist's color wheel. So OR for orange red, Y for yellow, YO for yellow orange, BV for blue violet, like that. Now, there's also two numbers. It's the first number is the color hue. So that will give you an indication of where inside that little wedge in the artist's color wheel does this marker land. Is it a little bit more red? Is it a little bit more yellow? That's what you're going to see. And then the second one is the value number. Is it a really strong saturated color, or is it a much more weak light toned color? So that's how the color system works. It also provides you with a color name, and this can be seen on the label that's on the side of your marker. So for instance, BG 2.4 fluorite would be blue-green, 2 in the color hue, 4 in the color value, and the name of the color is fluorite. Now also they have provided a marker they call their 0, which is a colorless blender, but like I've said before, calling these markers a colorless blender is not exactly correct. You don't use them for blending. It's a little misleading. So what you use it for is more for diluting colors, adding textures, or you can also kind of hide or minimize your mistakes with the 0 pen. I have finished swatching, and let's start by looking at the 32 Olos right here, which includes the 0 that I talked about during the swatching. Now remember that in all, the color system has 128 colors, so we're only seeing a fourth of the colors that are available to us. And I don't have a full set of Copics, so I just tried to grab a few to compare and look at. Same here with the Blicks. And then I just grabbed 3 Prismacolors and 3 Ohuhus, and I've got them all here now. So in red, for instance, I have the new Olo marker. I have a Prismacolor brush tip marker. I have an Ohuhu brush tip marker, a Copic sketch marker with a brush tip, and a Blick Studio marker with a brush tip as well. So we have 5 markers with brush tips that we can compare. I know for sure that the Copic and the Olo are coming in from Japan, so I'm curious to see if their nibs feel similar. I'm not too sure. I know the Ohuhu's coming in from China, and I'm not sure on Bliss Studio and Prismacolor where they're coming in from. Let's see if I can see. It says assembled in the USA, but that doesn't mean the parts have come from the USA. Okay, so what I want to do now is go to a blank page, and I really want to feel how these nibs work. And let me show you real quick again the colors that come with the 32 set 2. There are, I think, 4 32-piece sets, and this is what I got right here. Lots of orangey tones, which I was happy about because it'll be good for general skin tones. I can go really dark, I can go really light, so I'm happy with that. The other thing I'm happy about is the warm grays. They seem very warm. Like if you compare the warm grays in the Copics to the warm grays in the Bliss, these feel much cooler, have a much more blue undertone than the Copics do. So I like that we have an actual true warm gray to work with my warm tones that I have here in this set. Okay, so let's go to a blank page now before we try anything else, and let's feel these nibs. Let's see the difference between the brush nibs. So I'm going to make 3, oh actually we have 5 categories here. Let me set this up. Alright, so let's see how these brush nibs feel. We'll start with the Olo marker, our new one here. And this, of course, we have to really mention at the beginning that this is a brand new marker. This nib hasn't been broken in or overly used, where some of these others I've had for years, like the Prismacolor. So is this a truly fair? No, I'd have to buy a brand new one of each to be truly, truly fair, but it's good enough for our purposes here. And let me put the blotting page underneath here to keep any bleeding from coming through. And I'm going to start with just some flicks. Looks good. And then some solid coloring, nice and slow. And then some stippling, followed by a few more flicks. And let's see how that nib looks. It's bent a little bit, but not too bad. Let's see how it compares to others. Now the Copic, it's this one here. We'll do some flicks. Again, this is not a brand new marker here. Copics are well known for their really nice nib. Comes in from Japan, and they are super flexible and last a long time as long as you take good care of them. And again, you can see there's a little bit of a bend in the nib after being used. We'll come back to it and see if it recovers. Okay, now the Bliss marker. Bliss is my current favorite dupe for the Copics. They have a really nice nib. It's a little different. You can see we're getting a wider flick there. That's interesting. And this one seems to be creating a curl at the front. Again, that could be because this is an older marker. Stipples, and then 3 more flicks. Oh, nib. See how nice and straight that nib stays? That's pretty impressive, and it's a very dirty marker. Very well used and loved marker. Okay, Prismacolor. I've had these for years, and they still, the ink in them just keeps going. They're very impressive. Okay, let's do a flick. Fill in solid color. And tap, tap, tap. Looks like we can get... it tends to do bigger dots, this nib does. Okay, and then that nib has a bit of a bend in it too now that it's been worked. It's pretty normal for it to get a bit of a bend. You just don't want an extreme bend, and you want it to kind of pull back into shape after you're done working. So this is Ohuhu, by far the cheapest out of all of these. It's a Chinese brand. They don't have refills, at least last time I checked. These guys don't have refills. Okay. Stippling. The nib does not like to stipple. Okay, and you can see how that nib tip is a little bent. And it's a different kind of bend. It's more like the tip just doesn't want to stay where it's supposed to stay. Let's go back now and look at the Olo, and you can see it's back to its normal shape. Seems to be doing great. Okay, I'm going to repeat this same test using the blue markers and the green. And remember, it's not about trying to match a perfect red to a perfect red. It's just about feeling the nibs and seeing how they work. And then once we finish blue and green, I want to talk about the chisel nib. When you read on their website about their nib, they're very proud of it. They say it's like no other, made in Japan. It's smooth and feels fluid with lots of control. So that's what I'm sort of testing for. I won't be able to really get a good feel for these nibs until I actually do a full piece of art. But for now, this will give us a first impression. Now that we've got a feel for the nibs, let's talk about the different kinds of nibs you're going to find in a marker. I think the most general, the one you'll see the most, is usually a chisel nib. I'll show you one right here. This is the Copic chisel nib. And it's basically a rectangle cut at an angle, and then it has a couple other angles. And this allows you to create different widths of line. And I love a chisel nib for covering large areas. And then I love a brush nib, this other end, for delicate, smaller details and for blending. Because of that flick motion you can get, I think it's the best option for me for blending. So that's why I opted for all brush nibs with the Olo markers. Now there's also like a fine point nib that you'll see on some markers as well. That's the Prismacolor marker. But in general, usually what you'll see is brush nib on one side and chisel on the other side. So this is the one marker that was accidentally sent to me with a brush nib on one side and chisel on the other. The way they identify it with here with the Olos is that it's a kind of a gray, a dark gray, and then a black for the brush. So this is what their nib looks like. It's quite different. It's more rounded, and then it has a slanted cut going in and then a flat cut at the end. Hopefully you can see that because it is a little different than what we're used to. Let's take a look at the Ohuhu. Again, the Ohuhu is more rectangular and broader than the Copic and shaped like the Copic, but this Olo one is different. So let's see what it can do here. I'm going to use my blotting sheet from my coloring book back here like this, and I'm going to do a nice, that's the very first time I've ever used it, so I'm going to do it a couple times to get that nib working. So that's probably the fattest part. Rotate it and you can get that line. Rotate it onto its side and you can get that type of line. It's pretty much the same as up there. Let's see if I can get a really thin line. Yep, by holding it that direction. So that nib will do a lot of different things. Let's compare it. I'll write Olo below it. If I hold it at an angle, let's see if we can get some interesting shapes on our letters. Not too bad. Okay, now the Copic marker has a chisel and it produces a much wider line. Okay, let's see what other shapes I can create using a Copic chisel. I hold it on its side and then hold it like that. So the difference here is that the Copics give us a much broader coverage with every stroke of a chisel nib. Let's go ahead and test one more. Let's bring up our cheap Ohuhus, and I'll show you how much wider the Ohuhus can cover in one streak. And then if you go this direction, you get this width. And if you hold it on its side, again, very thick, and then we should be able to get not as thin as the other two, but not too shabby. Oh, hoo. So while I've got you here, let's talk about the name Olo. This is their little sticker that they sent me, and they call it the Heart of Color. And if you look, OLO is the center 3 letters in the word color. So I think that's where they're coming up with the heart. And it is Olo. I checked with their company to make sure I'm pronouncing it right, and I think I've got it right, saying Olo. Okay, so as far as the 3 chisels go, I think I prefer Copic, but I'm intrigued by the different sizes. I like Copic because it's sort of a good broad coverage with that chisel nib, but I like that you get a really super thin. So it's very competitive with the Copic chisel nib. It's very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the ink system as I'm filling out this Olo marker chart that they sent me. And by the way, it was brilliant of them to send this because it's just triggering my full set syndrome and I want more colors. As far as the ink system goes, it's a new type of system. It's cartridge free and the ink is free flowing within each section of that double-ended marker. According to the website, that means there's more usable ink within the center of the majority of the markers we use. In fact, all of them that I can think of, they all have sort of a foam tubular type insert that helps wick the ink from the center of the marker to the different ends of the nibs. Now, according to their website, this type of system makes it so that there is only 65 to 70% of the ink available for usage, where with their new system, you can use 90% of the ink that is inside of that marker. Now, each marker, if you count a double-ended marker, is holding 4 milliliters. So that's 2 times more usable ink than a standard Copic marker or a standard marker is what they're talking about. Each half of these markers hold 2 milliliters of their inks. And they do have replacement cartridges, and it's not the bottles that we're used to, it's an actual replacement cartridge. Now, as I was thinking about this new ink flow system, I had to ask myself, what's the best way to store these markers? Now, with Copic markers and other double-ended markers like my Bliss, you want to store them horizontally so that the ink can be evenly dispersed between the 2 ends of that marker. Is that true for these? Do I have to have them horizontal, or can I do them vertical in this little case that they've given me? And according to Olo's website, you can store them horizontally, vertically, however you want. It doesn't really matter with this type of marker. Now, as I was saying, they have refills. Let me show you what that looks like. They have refills that you can purchase, and then you would just use your old nibs, and they do have replacement nibs that you can stick in there as well if you would like to. So that works out really well. And here is the full color spectrum, and you can see in my set of 32 how many I got spread out across the different color wheel. The only one I see we didn't get is a yellow green. but I think every other color is represented in this set too. The other cool thing about their system is if I decide to buy another set, say the 32-piece set 1, it won't have any duplicates. It'll just add on to my system and make my full set syndrome that much more satisfied. So I'll have to think about that, whether I would like to own more or not. Now here is a really good image that we can look at to see how the centers of these markers are working, and it talks about how 90% of the ink is usable in an Olo marker, and they have replaceable nibs, 2 milliliters of ink. All the things I was talking about you can see represented here in this image. Now, I thought it would be kind of fun if we took an old Copic marker and dissect it to see what's going on inside of that marker. So I have right here my box of marker refills. So typically with a marker system like this, you start investing in refills, and they come in bottles like this, and you have to drip the ink into your marker. And it works fine. I have no problem with this, although I don't like having to purchase all of these bottles so that I'm ready to replace at any moment. You also need a little tool like this. This is by Copic. It's called Copic Tweezer, to help you carefully remove the nibs as you're refilling or replacing the nibs, and it keeps your fingers clean. So I'm going to grab that. And then this little Copic Chow marker is a marker I used in a previous video, so I know it's empty of ink and I don't feel too precious about it. I could refill it if I want to, but I think sacrificing it to the purpose of this Olo video is a good cause. So I'm going to go in here to the chisel side to show you what's happening. If I remove that chisel nib, typically you want to remove a chisel nib if it's available versus a brush nib, because those are much more delicate and the chisel nibs tend to be very rigid. So if you pull that out, this part right here is the actual marker part that we color with, and then this long stem here goes down and touches up against the ink well inside. And this particular marker here, if we take it apart here, let's see if I can get it to come apart. Give me a minute. I got out my wire clippers. I'm using them as pliers, and I'm able to pull out the center here. So you can see this is that foam or fibrous center I was talking about that they have eliminated with the Olo marker. And this here, they're saying causes problems with flow and holds a certain amount of the ink, and it's hard to get it to flow correctly to the nibs. So you can see right there, that's where the nib touches in, just like that, and then the ink will wick up into the rest of the nib where we can use it. So in contrast to this type of system here that most of our markers use, this is the system that Olo is using. And I'm tempted to pull apart an Olo marker, but I'm nervous I'm never going to get it together again, but we're going to go for it. So I grabbed a warm gray. I figure, I guess, warm gray is as is a color that I can give up. And if I pull out the nib very carefully, because these are very delicate. Come on. There we go. That takes the nib out. And I'm trying to see if there's a way to take this apart. There is. Okay, I hope this isn't going to spill ink everywhere. In fact, I think I'll put the nib back in. Oop. Look what I do for you guys. I tear apart markers. Oh. I'm just gonna get my fingers in there. We knew that was going to happen. Okay, let's look at the other end now. I take out this ring. You can't see in there. All right, I took it apart as much as I possibly can, and all we get is you have this little ring, which is the connector between the two halves, and then you can take the cap off and you can take the nib out, but I can't see how to take this apart to look inside and see how much ink there is or how it's working inside. So we'll just have to take the word of Olo that this is what's happening inside, because I can't take it apart without actually destroying this part of the marker, and I don't want to do that. So I guess now that I've got myself covered in ink and I've tried all these markers, it's time to give you my final first impression thoughts on the Olo Marker system. Let's start with the actual system. I like the idea of more of the ink being usable. That won't be proven out to me until I've done some coloring, which is going to be our next video. I'm going to do a whole bunch of coloring and get a feel for these markers. So we'll see how the ink holds up as I work with it and how the nibs work. Now, as far as what I've seen so far with the nibs, I like both nibs. The chisel and the brush both feel high quality and have a lot of different things you can do with them, and so I'm excited again to color with them and see how long they last. Do they hold their firmness? Do the nice flicks continue? All those things that we need to learn about the brush and the chisel, and we won't be able to learn that until we actually do some coloring. Now, price-wise, they are quite expensive, but if you think about how much ink that you're going to save, if what they're saying is true about only 65 to 70% of the ink is usable in other comparable markers, then if we really truly can get 90% of the ink used out of these markers, then maybe there's a better value there. I'm on the fence about the idea of a full replacement cartridge rather than bottles of ink. You know, is it kind of like going to the store and you just keep buying hand soap pump bottles over and over? Or is it more like, you know, when you buy a big jug of soap and you can refill all those little bottles? That's kind of, you know, I've been trained to think that's the best way to have these markers used, is by having a big bottle of ink and you refill them and it's less trash into the landfills. But we won't know exactly how I feel about that until I use it. I love that they are all available, all the colors open stock or single, or you can get them all just brush nib, or you can get them all chisel nib, or you can get a mix of that. It's a really cool idea and I'm excited about it. Comment below, how do you feel about the new Olo marker system? Do you think it's new enough, or do you think it's just a variation on a theme? That's what I would like to know. Price-wise, I'm going to have the prices put up right now on the screen so that you can see how much my set would cost you if you come in and order it right now versus if you want to buy just half. So you have, you know, here I have basically 62 markers, but only 64 markers and only 32 colors. You can get it different ways so that you have a different setup. It's quite cool the way you can customize this. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to go check out their website. Send them any questions you have if you're having trouble figuring out what you need to order. What do you think, Steve? Is it just a variation on a theme, or is this something brand new?
I don't know. I was going to ask you. Is it a gimmick?
I think they truly are trying something new, where it doesn't have that foam fibrous insert. That's new. Whether it pays off the way they say it will, we got to keep trying.
Yeah, so it sounds like we need to spend a little more time with them.
Yeah, which, like I said, that's our next video. I'm going to do a ton of coloring in this coloring book here, printed on marker paper, and really give them a go. See how they perform. Ooh, maybe I'll do that one first. And see how they perform. I'm excited. I'm intrigued.
I am too. I'm impressed that somebody is doing something new, you know, that they truly are trying to innovate, not just change marketing, change the
labels,
case, you know, all of that they're actually trying something new. I think that's impressive.
Yeah. So I'm willing to keep going. And I must say my full set syndrome is really kicking in.
Oh, yeah?
Part of me just wants to order them all so that all my dots will be full. But I'm going to wait and keep testing. And I also want you to comment below, would you like these as a giveaway?
Yeah, we initially considered purchasing another one for a giveaway, but we didn't know if we would like them.
Yeah.
And as you know, we purchase things with our own money so that we don't feel obligated to say something nice or to say something.
Yeah, we don't ever want you to feel conflicted as to what our intentions are in a video. So that's why I purchased it all with my own money.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pull the trigger on a second set yet because I didn't know if I would like them or not. But I'm kind of at this moment leaning towards quite excited about these new markers. So let me know in the comments below, would you like us to purchase a set and do a giveaway featuring the Olo markers? That would be really fun and exciting. So I think what I need to do is wash my hands and get all this ink off, and then I'm going to dive in and start coloring with these markers.
Fun.
I'm really excited, but boy, my full set syndrome. Look at all those empty dots.
Yeah.
And they have red grays.
Oh, wow.
Warm grays and red grays. I don't have any blacks. I don't have any yellow greens. And I use yellow green like all the time. That's usually one of the first crayons in my color pencil sets that get short. It's the yellow greens.
Yeah, that is really cool. They've already organized them very thoughtfully into color families. And,
Well done, Olo. You've got my interest piqued, and I'm willing to keep working with these markers to see how they perform. So make sure you subscribe and you hit that like button and then that notification bell so that when the next video comes up, you'll be able to see how these markers perform and if we decide to do a giveaway. Also, you can come over to Coloring Bliss and become at least a free member so that you get our emails and you'll know if the giveaway starts. You don't want to miss out if we decide to do this giveaway. Thanks everyone for all of your time, all of the attention you give us, the comments, all of that really helps our YouTube channel. In fact, we recently crossed over 70,000 subscribers, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone for supporting us for so many years here at Coloring Bliss. All right, I got to get to coloring, and I hope you have a wonderful, colorful, blissful day too. But bye everyone.